Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Build a Real Estate Empire Using Very Little Cash with MAPS coach Heidi Four. Please note this meeting is being recorded and will be available within 24 hours on the MAPS Fast Track YouTube channel. You may access the YouTube channel from your Zoom confirmation email, and we will also share the link in the chat momentarily. Currently, everyone's on mute. We do value group participation, so we ask that if you have any questions for Heidi, please type them into the chat box below and they will be addressed throughout the webinar. Following this meeting, if you have any questions about today's call or our coaching programs, please email us at fasttrack@kw.com. That is fasttrack@kw.com. And that's all for me, Heidi. Take it away.
Thank you, and thanks everyone for being here today. I am so excited to share with you what I have learned on my own wealth building journey. I currently have 53 properties that more than pay for our lifestyle expenses, and I would love to share with you some of the things that I've learned to get to this place and build our portfolio. There are many different ways to buy rental properties, and paying cash is just one of them. Of course, you could save and save and save until you have enough cash to purchase a property, then save and save and save and purchase another one. And there are other ways to do it as well, where you can build your portfolio faster. And some of you may be thinking, well, I only have a small amount of cash. I can't imagine saving enough cash to buy a house. So we're going to talk about some things you could do today to get into properties with a small amount of cash. We're going to show you 8 ways to get into properties with a small amount of cash, and then a bonus 9th way of what you can do once you have that first house paid for with cash. So let's get started. My name is Heidi Four. I'm a MAPS coach. I'm also a realtor with Keller Williams Realty. I've been a realtor since 2002, and I lost track after I got to my first 1,000 properties sold as a realtor. I don't even know how many it is now. I do know that I have 53 rental units because I keep track of those in my bookkeeping of who lives in them and whether or not they've paid and what income and expenses are on each unit. I bought most of these units, like 95% of them, since 2018. I got very intentional and purposeful in 2018 about buying rental properties because I wanted to have the freedom to be able to homeschool my kids if needed.
Well, just know it will be received in the spirit it was said.
I wanted to have that freedom to be able to homeschool my kids if needed. So I got really intentional about being able to replace my job income with rental property profit income. And since there are so many people here today, if you have any questions either about the properties I bought or how I found them, or any questions today after our webinar here, feel free to go to facebook.com/groups/information sharing. And it's a public group that you can join. I just made it for us today. And so far, we have had 459 people register to either come to this webinar live today or get this recording. So I was a little bit concerned that we wouldn't have time to get to all the questions in the chat. So if I don't get to your question in the chat today and you want it answered, please go to this group and post your question in this group, and I will promise to answer all the questions there if I don't get to the questions in the chat today, since we only have 30 minutes and possibly 459 people. So someone says, will we be able to watch this later? Yes, yes, you can. And thank you, Amy, for posting that link in the chat. I appreciate you. Now, before taking action on anything in this class, talk to your attorney, possibly several attorneys. I have attorneys for different areas of my real estate, for different areas of real estate needs. I've got my title attorney, I've got an eviction attorney, I've got my attorney that does the 1031 exchanges, I've got attorney that I ask small business questions of, and I've got attorney that I go to for asset protection and trust. So sometimes you need specialists, just like realtors can be specialists in their different parts of real estate. Attorneys can also be specialists. So highly recommend you talk to people in your area to find great attorneys that can help you with your needs. Also, talk to your accountant before taking action on anything in this class, especially if it's around capital gains taxes in the 1031 exchange. There's very specific ways to do things, and also with opportunity funds and also with self-directed IRAs. These are all really great tools for buying and selling rental properties, and they also have tax implications. So make sure you talk to your accountant. Talk to a financial planner about if building your wealth through real estate is the best for you. If you could get to your freedom number faster, freedom number meaning you've got enough income coming in monthly to completely make you free from having a job. If you can get to that faster another way, okay, do it another way. I found that the fastest way for me was to do it through owning rental properties. So talk to a financial planner. Okay, someone says we can't see the slides. Any way to make the participant window smaller? Rodrigo, can you help? Okay, Jane can see the slides. Can we get a consensus? Can anyone else see the slides? Okay, good. Then that might be okay, great. That might be a setting on yours. So play around with your settings. Okay, great. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Perfect. So also talk to your realtor. If you are not a realtor, if you don't have a real estate license, talk to a realtor in your area. Also talk to a realtor in the next town over. I found that I actually found better deals if I went to the next town over, just about 30 minutes away from where I lived. And that might be for you. If you live on a state line, it might be in a different state. And it might be an area that you hadn't considered because it's a different state. And maybe you have a real estate license in one state, but not the other. Just consider it, go explore it, see where your best cash on cash return is near you. It's always best, if possible, to find a rental property that's in driving distance for you so that you can meet tenants there, check on the properties, those sorts of things. And it's totally okay if you live in Arizona and you want to buy a rental property in Illinois or Florida or Costa Rica. I bought a property in Costa Rica once. It was easy. I had a great realtor there, Keller Williams Realtor. Also, what you want to do before taking action on anything in this class is read your mortgage terms regarding the due on sale clauses. Some of the things that we're going to talk about today might be prohibited depending on the type of mortgage that you or the seller has of the house that you might want to purchase. So we just need to, first of all, disclose everything. Secondly, read all the fine print before taking action on the things that we'll talk about today. You might need to get special permission to do some of the things that we're going to discuss today. So now we're going to get into the 8 ways to stretch your cash when buying investment properties. All of the methods that I'm going to discuss today have pros and cons to them. They won't work in every situation, but they are tools that you can use as needed when it solves a problem for the seller and it solves a problem for you. Think of these as tools in a tool belt. You might not need a hammer today. You might need a different tool today. You might need a wrench today. You might need a hammer tomorrow. So these are just tools to have in case the opportunity comes up where the tools make sense to use. Also, just because you can use these tools doesn't mean you should. There are bad deals out there that just don't make sense to do. So just because you can do, let's just say, seller financing on something doesn't mean it's a great deal. So let's get started. Way number 1 is probably the most common, and it's the easiest, and it's something that you could do today, is buy a primary residence, keep buying primary residences and rent them out instead of selling them when you move up. You can also just rent out other apartments. If you buy a duplex, triplex, or fourplex, or if you buy a large house, you can rent out some rooms. You can rent out the basement if there's a walkout basement and there's a proper legal bedroom there. So not many people know this, but you can buy a duplex, a triplex, or a fourplex with just a regular primary residence loan, a fixed 30-year loan at a low rate. And also, if you buy something as your primary residence, and then later it turns into a rental property, you still get the first chance at buying foreclosures from many of the websites. Many websites say that you can buy foreclosures on them, and for the first 7 days or 10 days, it's for people that want to make it their primary residence. So if you could just buy a house, live in it for 2 or 3 years, maybe 4 years, and then keep that one as a rental property and go do it again and go do it again and go do it again, that can be a great way to start. And it could be a great way it could be something you could do in addition to some of the other methods that we'll talk about today, but it is a great way to get started. Because when you're buying a house as your primary residence, you can put as little as 3% down. And if you're a realtor, it's possible you're also going to get a 3% commission. You could even ask the seller to pay your closing costs and save your cash for doing repairs if it needs repairs. I always like to buy houses that need improving. I try to buy houses that are like 80% less than what they will be fixed up, or at even better, 70%, at a price of 70% of what they would be worth once they're fixed up, so that I can later get the equity back out of it by doing some of the equity loans that we'll talk about later in this class. This is something that my family and I did. We just keep moving. Every 2 or 3 or 4 years, we keep moving. We've lived in, I think, 8 different residences over the time that we've started this, over the time that I've been a realtor. And we just keep improving it and keeping it as the old one as a rental, and when it makes sense, selling it and exchanging it for another rental property. After it's renovated, and while it's still your primary residence, it can be a great time to go get a home equity loan on it, or a home equity line of credit. And doing this method, you could, again, if you move every 2 or 3 years, that means over 15 years, you could have 5 to 7 rental properties just from moving, and another 5 properties from using home equity loans as your down payment on other rental properties. And that takes us to the next method of getting into investing in real estate, which is a home equity line of credit. Usually these are a variable interest rate, which means it fluctuates based on prime. And so that's kind of the disadvantage of it, is like, what are interest rates going to do? I don't know. Like, how high is this rate going to go? That can be a little bit scary. And it can be the reason why people might not do it and choose to do a home equity fixed rate loan instead. But what's nice about the home equity line of credit is it kind of acts like a credit card, in that after the balance is paid off, as long as you don't close the line of credit, you can reuse it. So one of the things that I've done is I took out a line of credit on a property, and I used it as a down payment to buy a fourplex. So I got a $50,000 line of credit, use it as a down payment on a $2,000 fourplex, and the amount of money that I made in rent on the fourplex more than paid for the expenses for the loan that I got on the fourplex for the 80%, and the 20% that I borrowed for the down payment. And we still make really good profit on it. So it can really be a great tool. And after I paid all of that down, I didn't close it out. I just paid it down to 0. And then I used the whole thing to go buy another property. And then you can just keep reusing that same line of credit. After a certain amount of years, usually the bank will tell you, okay, stop using it as a credit card and just start paying it off. And then you have to be like, okay, fine, I'll start paying it off. It's relatively easy to get this on your primary residence, and some banks are even advertising that they'll lend up to like 90% of the value of the house. And of course, if you have another mortgage on it already, like they would subtract that. So they'll take 95% of the value of the house, subtract what the primary mortgage is, and then what's left is how much they'll give you as a home equity line of credit. Now, this can be scary, because what if the value of the house goes down? Then you're upside down, you owe more than your house is worth. And if you had to sell, it would end up being potentially a short sale, or you'd have to come up with money. So only do this if you know that you're going to keep the house a long time, or just don't borrow the whole 95%. You could just borrow like up to 80% of the home's value. You don't have to take the whole 95% just because it's available. If you can get home equity lines of credit on a rental property, they're just harder to find banks that will do that. And usually if they do, they'll only do it for they'll only let you have leverage on up to 80% of the value of the rental property, not like 90% or 95% like they do on your primary residence. A fixed rate home equity loan can be used in the same way. What's nice about these is that the rate is fixed for like 10 to 30 years, depending on the terms of your bank. And it's paid in equal installments, and it's paid over a certain amount of time. So there's certainty there. You know what your monthly payment is going to be. It won't fluctuate. You know that over the next X number of years, every month, you're going to have this home equity loan. And that's what you can use to go use as a down payment on a house or on a duplex or a triplex or a fourplex. But once that balance is paid back, it cannot be reused. It's not like the credit card. It's just closed out. What a downside to this is you do have to get all of the cash out up front for this, and which means you're going to be paying interest on all the money, regardless if you use it. So if you get a home equity loan of, let's just pretend you get a $50,000 home equity loan, you go ahead and get that $50,000 in cash up front, which you can use, but if you don't use it, you're still paying interest on that money. So what you would not want to do is say, I'm going to get a home equity loan out just in case, and then go put it in like a checking account. That would not make sense, because you're going to be paying interest on that cash every month, and it's not doing anything for you sitting in a checking account. But if you could get a home equity loan at 6%, and then your money could go make 10%, that might make sense. Again, you don't have to use this. It might not make sense in every situation, but it is a tool that could make sense for you if the right deal comes along and you want to have a down payment for it. Consider a fixed rate home equity loan. Just like the line of credit, it's easy to get if it's on your primary residence. It's a little bit tougher on rental properties. Usually they'll only fix it for 10 years and only let you borrow, have 80% of the house in debt, 80% of the house's value in different loans. If you have enough equity, though, you could consider using it as a down payment on a package of houses that you could buy from a retiring landlord. If you have a large home and there's a lot of equity in it, you could, if there's enough equity, say, I'm going to get a home equity loan out and I'm going to use it to go pay cash for a house. That's great. You can do that. And then you can go and do the BRRRR method with that house, which I'll describe in a little bit. Or what you can do, if you've got a large amount of cash that came out of a home equity loan on your house, on your primary residence, is find a retiring landlord who has 4, 5, or 6 properties, then go to a local bank and ask them to do an in-house portfolio loan to buy all of those 6 properties in one loan package using the cash from your primary residence home equity fixed rate loan. That way you could get 5 or 6 properties in one loan with none of your own money. So the numbers have to work, like we said earlier, and it could be a good way to really build your portfolio fast. Another way that you could buy rental properties is finding an equity partner. This is, in this scenario, you find a property and you manage all the repairs and you manage finding tenants, and your partner owns a piece of the property, but they don't do the work. It's like you put in the time, they put in the money. The partner brings the cash to purchase it, and they also bring in the repairs. They might bring enough cash for the entire property, or maybe they just bring enough cash for the down payment, and you still have, the two of you still have a loan on it every month. You could put the deed to the house in both your names, or you could make an LLC with your partner, and then the LLC could own the house, and the LLC takes on those expenses. You could own it as tenants in common. You could split the rent 50-50. So with this, it's all negotiable, whatever you and your equity partner decide, but just consider that you actually don't need to have money to get into real estate if you find a great deal. There are plenty of people with money that don't have time, and they would gladly say, go find me a deal and I'll bring you the money for it. Someday then, when you could, if you like the house and your equity partner wants out, you could refinance the property in your name, and you could then pay your equity partner back, plus whatever the increased value is. You could have an appraisal done. Someone said, how do you find an equity partner? Through networking. I go to networking events about once a week. I go to Real Estate Investor Association meetings. So if you are looking to find equity partners, a great place to start is to go to Google and type in the name of your city or the name of your state and then type in the words Real Estate Investor Association and hit search. And you will find a list of groups of real estate investors that meet frequently, and they bring each other deals and they bring each other money, and they work out partnerships all the time. If you don't have a formal real estate investor association group that meets in your city, go to meetup.com and type in real estate investing and then type in your location, and it will show you the closest one to you, meetup.com. Can you get a property under an LLC if it has a mortgage? Yes, at certain banks. I had to call 12 different banks to get a bank that would do a mortgage on a property in the name of my LLC. So you may have to do lots of phone calls. And something my coach told me, I'll tell you, there are very few problems you can have in business that 25 purposeful conversations a day won't solve. So make a commitment to have 20 or 25 purposeful business conversations a day, and you can solve any problem. So if you call 20 or 25 banks and tell them your problem, bet you'll find one that can help you. Another way to buy properties is by finding a debt partner. This is also known as private lending, where you ask someone to borrow money to buy the property and you offer to pay them back in fixed payments over an agreed period. And in this situation, though, they don't own it with you. You don't own the property 50-50. You own it yourself 100%. You're just borrowing the money. What's nice about this is that once you've paid that person back, you're done. You don't have any problems with having another partner, and you don't have any disagreements over whether or not the roof needs to be fixed, whether or not we should evict the tenants. Those are some things that can ruin a friendship if you and your friend got into formed an LLC together or just bought a property together as individuals. It could end up really hurting relationships. What might be better is if you just borrow money and pay that person back on time. This can also, though, hurt relationships anytime money is involved. So just be careful. And we never want to put profits over people. So consider carefully who you're lending money from and who you lend money to, and make sure that that isn't going to damage a relationship. Negotiate a win-win. This is what's nice about private lending, is you actually can negotiate the terms. Usually when you go to a bank, they're not going to negotiate their terms. It's like, it is what it is. And with hard money lenders, similarly, it is what it is. They publish their rates, they publish their terms, and that's it, take it or leave it. But with private lending, if it's just you and an individual or you and a private lending company, then it's really between the two of you how you work out the financing. How long is the loan going to be, and what are your installments, or what is your payment going to be? All those things, it's the interest rate. The other thing that's nice about private lending is that you can refinance it with a traditional mortgage. So let's pretend for some reason your credit score took a hit. You know it's not going to be that way forever. You know it was just a hiccup, and you know that you're not going to be able to get a bank loan. Or let's pretend you already have 10 properties through banks, and banks won't give you any more loans because they're like, you already have 10 properties with banks or with like traditional financing, traditional mortgages. Are not going to give you any more. You could go to a private lender and tell them, look, I'm a great investor. These are all the properties that I have. I'm good for the money. I just need a loan. So you can then get some money from them, and you can always refinance with a traditional mortgage later. Most banks will let you have up to 10 traditional fixed 30-year mortgages in your personal name, and after that, you're going to have to go to private lending, or you're going to have to get loans in the name of an LLC. And those are usually called commercial loans, even though they're on residential real estate, which is kind of confusing. Some banks also call them portfolio loans. They call them in-house products. That's the name of the loan. And those terms of those loans generally aren't as good as getting a traditional 30-year fixed rate mortgage in your personal name, and you can always quick claim it later from your personal name into an LLC for asset protection. Something that some people don't know, maybe you already do, is that if someone has a self-directed IRA, they can actually lend you money from that self-directed IRA to you for you to purchase rental property with, and that could be your debt partner that way. Again, ask your accountant about that. Hard money lenders are similar in that they're not banks. They do loans, and they do loans at like 11% or 12%. And they want you to pay their loan back within a year, maybe 2 years, maybe 3 years. So they're not great terms, but they can be really good. If you find a deal and the seller says, listen, I just want this thing off my hands. If you can close on it by the end of the month, it's yours. This is the perfect time to go to a hard money lender and say, I need cash now. Can you loan me some money so I can go do this deal? And I'm going to refinance it as soon as I get into my name. I'm going to do some work to it. I'm going to go to a bank that will allow me to refinance it as a traditional 30-year loan, and preferably at the appraised value after it's been improved, and be able to pay you back. So that's the perfect situation for hard money loans, hard money lenders. So they can also do a fast closing. That's another benefit of them. It's an easy underwriting process. Usually they're more interested in the deal than the borrower. Usually they are like, tell me about this deal. Tell me about the appraised value. What's the after repair value? And tell me about your experience in either flipping houses or as a landlord. So it can be pretty easy to get them. It could be fast to get them, but you're going to have to do the extra work later of refinancing them. A lot of people use these for flips because they're like, yeah, I don't care, it's a 12% interest rate. I'm going to flip this in 90 days or 120 days. So whatever. I just need the money up front so that I can go put the work into it, give it a facelift, and put it back on the market. I don't like flipping. I like holding. And as long as I'm making money on it, I don't sell it. But as soon as I find a house or a series of houses or an apartment building where I could make more money per month on that, then I'll sell one to buy the other. So keep upgrading the properties. And something else though is if something is a really good deal, you may not have to bring any down payment at all with a hard money lender. So for example, if a hard money lender says, yeah, I mean, we'll lend up to 80% of a property's after repair value, you might end up in putting a deal together where you don't have to have any money down, just depending on what the appraised value is, the after repair value is, and the price you're able to negotiate with the seller. And I know we are almost at the end of the 30 minutes and I've got a few more things to get through, so I will start talking faster and I'll tell you where to go to get more information. One of the other ways that you can buy properties is a master lease option with the right to sublet it. So in this situation, you would ask the landlord who is potentially renting out a whole apartment building or just a house, if they would rent the house to you and allow you to sublet it, then you would take over their maintenance of the property. You can make a little extra money while you're putting together your plan to buy it. And you would get an option to buy it at the end of the 1-year lease or 2-year lease or 3-year lease, whatever your lease is. So you could consider renting a house from a landlord with the option to purchase it at the end of the lease and the right to sublet it during that time while you're putting the finances together. Seller financing is a great way to buy properties. It's easiest if the seller doesn't have a mortgage on the house, on the property. If the seller has an existing mortgage, you can still do it. But as I said earlier, some sellers' banks won't let you, so you have to get permission up front from them. And that would be a wrap mortgage or a subject to purchase, because the loan that they have when they're selling the house to you is subject to another loan. And you would pay the seller's current mortgage plus a little extra to the seller every month. You can then rent the house to a tenant, you keep the difference. And it's a great thing to use if the seller just wants to unload a house, but they love the idea of having monthly income from it. They just don't want to maintain it anymore. They're just tired. So that's 8 different ways that you can use to buy properties with very little cash out of your pocket. Here's a bonus, number 9, way to buy cash. Now, I didn't include the first 8 because it does mean that you have to have paid for a house first with cash. But once you have a house that has no mortgage on it, it's paid off with cash, a great thing that you can do is rehab it, make it look pretty, rent it to tenants for a high the highest fair market value or fair market rent you can get, and then refinance at a local bank with a cash out refinance loan. If you do this the right way, you can actually get out more money at your cash out refinance loan than you paid for the house. And then you just recycle that cash. You just buy another house with it with cash and do the same thing again and do it again and do it again. This is how I bought so many houses in 4 years, because the first house pays for the second, which pays for the third, which pays for the fourth. And then you can actually do it on a whole package of houses. You can, once you have some houses paid off, you can go to another bank and go get a whole package of houses refinanced with a cash out refinance loan. So where do you get the cash for that first closing on that first house to pay for? Well, keep saving 20% of each paycheck until you've got enough. Sell a car, sell a business, you could use your funds in a self-directed IRA for the first one. Again, talk to your accountant about that. You might decide that you're going to pick up a side hustle that funds your financial freedom. You might decide that you're going to cut your budget down to living on 50% of your income and doing whatever it takes. And it may take a while, but it's really fun when you get to do that first BRRR method to do that cash out refinance and start recycling that money. As much as you can, as often as you can, look for houses that you can pick up for a purchase price that's 70% of the after repair value. It's much easier to do this method with that formula. There's just a couple other ways that I wanted to mention today. I know we're a minute over. If you have to go, I understand. But there are something called syndications. Apartment building syndications are the most common type, where if maybe someone doesn't have enough cash to buy a whole apartment building, but they want to buy a piece of it, someone can put together this deal and other people can put in like $25,000 checks or $50,000 checks to own a piece of that. And then they could earn, and the person that puts it together, the syndicator, can earn equity in the property and other fees. Syndications are something that you can put together as the operator or the syndicator, or you can buy into it as a passive investor. Another thing that's become popular is crowdfunding, where you pool your money with other investors through a real estate investment trust, where that's kind of nice, where someone else puts the deal together again, and you put your money into it. Delaware statutory trusts are especially good if you need to do a 1031 exchange. It's totally passive income, but you're not going to make as much money cash on cash as some of the other ways that we've talked about today, but it's totally passive, and it's great to use if you can't find a replacement property when you're doing a 1031 exchange. So the difference between crowdfunding and these Delaware statutory trusts and opportunity zone funds is, with a syndication, the difference between those and a syndication is if it's a syndication that's not one of these, it's not advertised, it's just someone knows someone and they know someone, and it's an acquaintance-based like form of crowdfunding. The things that you see online, the crowdfunding like funds that you can buy into online, they have special rules and that are governed by the Securities Exchange Commission, like the SEC. But regular syndications have exceptions, not regular syndications, like the private syndications, where someone puts it together and tells their friends about it, and their acquaintances about it. It's easier to put those together. It's harder, there's more hoops to jump through to put together a syndication that you can advertise. You can form your own opportunity zone fund, or you can buy into someone else's opportunity zone fund. An opportunity zone fund is a way that you can defer capital gains taxes. Sometimes there are situations where you can't do the 1031 exchange, but you can use the opportunity zone fund to defer taxes to later, capital gains taxes. So where does this fit in the whole financial freedom picture? Well, this part comes after you create your vision of what financial freedom is going to look like for you, and you have decided this is how many properties it's going to take for me to be financially free from ever having a job again. Now, you could be optionally employed, working because you want to, not because you have to. That's fun. And we just need to know, when you're starting off, how far am I from my goal? What is the distance from where I am now to that day, to financial freedom day? And then the next step is for you to calculate your expected profit per property that you're aiming for. And then you can have your criteria around property, so you know how many properties it's going to take to replace your current income. Once you know your property and you can easily say yes and no quickly, it becomes fun and easy to find properties. Then you choose what type of real estate is right for you. And then you choose how to pay for it, which is what we talked about today. So then it becomes part of your day or part of your week. The process of finding properties and looking for properties. I have it scheduled in my calendar of when I go look for properties. And in our next class that we do online, I'll show you how to find properties. So we just don't have time today to get into that, but I will show you. Then the next step is to learn how to work with tenants, from finding tenants to handling the application process and signing the lease and collecting rent payments. There's a lot to be learned in that step too. So make sure you spend some time researching that. Maintain your properties and track your key performance indicators once you have started collecting these rental properties. That's the next step. And then finally, once you have financial freedom, protect it. Protect your properties and your cash through trust, through LLCs, through having the right insurance on it, through having the right property managers, and then evaluate those key performance indicators either weekly or monthly to make sure that you are making the most from your investments. I've got this QR code here. If you want to learn all of those things that I just talked about, every single one of those bullet points is going to be covered in the 8-week session that starts on July 27th. You can also get to information on it and get a link to sign up for this session, the 8-week session, at the website financial, which you see on the bottom of the screen there. Financialfreedomcourse.info. What else do you get with the 8-week course? Well, there's 8 one-hour sessions, and we meet on Wednesdays because Wealth Building Wednesday. And there's a Facebook group only for course attendees where we are going to share, well, I'm going to anyway, share deals that I find with the students in the class, and then we can analyze them together, and that'll be fun. If anybody else wants to share deals that they find, maybe it's not right for you, and you pass it along to your classmates, that'll be great. So that's a different Facebook group than the one I shared with you earlier today. The one that I shared with you earlier today is just for asking questions from this class. Well, or even after this class is over, you could go there and ask questions. Then you'll also get a workbook that has all of the information that was contained in these slides today and all of the information that's going to be discussed in the 8-week course. And you can watch the course live. You can watch it with your team at work or with your office at work on your lunch break. You can watch it with your partner, your kids, your spouse, anybody from any industry or any company can take this course, and they'll find it very valuable on how to buy investment properties, rental properties, and make money at it. I'm going to give you that QR code one more time. Here it is. Or you can go to financialfreedomcourse.info to get more information. And I so appreciate you being here today. Please tell people about this course. It's called Fund Your Big Life with Rental Properties, because you really truly can fund a very big, fun life from the profit from rental properties. And you can start with very little cash, as we discussed today. I am going to stick around for a few minutes and do my best to get through all these questions that are in the chat. Enjoy your day, everyone. If I don't get to your question today, please go to that Facebook group that was on the screen earlier today. And I hope to see you at our next online class.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Heidi, what's the Facebook group?
Oh, I'll post it in the chat. Give me a second. Let me go get it.
I have a question. How do you get a bank to create a portfolio for you? Like, what kind of bank would it be? Like a big outfit, like a retail bank from Chase, or something really small?
No, you know what I found is that Chase and PNC, they only want to give money to people who already have money. Like they only want to give people money if they've got millions of dollars. But they have not found it a good idea to go to them. I go to the small banks, and I actually I just started a Google Doc of all the small banks, and I wrote down the day that I called them and who I talked to and the phone number and what loan programs they have. And then I attend those investor networking groups. And a lot of times the bankers will be there talking about their loans.
Thank you.
Okay, let's see. Do the strategies work in a recession? Yes, especially in a recession, because people, there's more problems to solve in a recession. You know, if people being sellers, potential sellers that might want to sell their houses, if they're making good money and they're happy, there's no reason for them to sell their properties. But in a recession, people have problems, and you can solve it through a lot of the ways we talked about today. People need to rent. People need a place to live. I love this industry.
So how does 1031 exchange work? Let's say, for example, you identify 3 properties, you do a 1031 and it failed. So do you automatically go into the DST, the Delaware statutory?
I think you have to decide that before the end of that 45-day period that you're going to do that. But that's always been my backup plan. I'm in the middle of a 1031 exchange right now. That's what I've said. Like, if I can't find the right house that makes sense to me, I'm not going to lose money on my next house. So I would rather put it into a Delaware statutory trust, or one of like the other crowdfunding 1031 exchange programs or tenancy in common exchange programs, and get, I don't know what, 6 or 7% a year. So some of them are advertising that. I'd rather do that than pay capital gains taxes on it.
Right.
Okay, I'm looking through these chat questions right now. What's the Facebook group? Okay, someone posted that. Cool. Will you be able to watch this later? Yes.
Heidi, have you had any experience with what they call slow flipping?
What flipping?
Slow flipping.
Nope.
Okay.
I don't know that. Okay, let's see. All right, someone said, what is the best book on this subject? There's so many. I'm going to put that in the Facebook group. I've got all these great books here. Like, I'll put them in the Facebook group, and we'll have a little book review in there. Would love to. That would be a great thing for all of us to put in the Facebook group, is like, put your favorite book in there. Let's discuss.
I have a question.
I have an answer, maybe.
I missed the first half of the sessions, but it says with little money down. How much are you coming across that the banks is asking you to put down when doing these loans?
Yeah, so if it's a house, and that you're going to use as a rental property, probably 20%. If it's a duplex, triplex, or fourplex, they want 25%.
Okay.
So that's where like, to get that money, that 20 or 25%, that's where I go to a home equity line of credit on another house I already have, or my primary residence where I live, and use that as my down payment on that other house. Or that's where you go find a partner and you say, I found this great deal, I just need to borrow the down payment. Okay.
So you have to do an elevator pitch for a partner.
Yeah, that's why you should always be nice to people.
Yeah.
You never know, you'll need them
Gotcha.
to be your partner. I say that, like, and I'm thinking right now of a kind of grumpy seller that I came across. He was an older gentleman who'd been landlording a long time, and he was just jaded and grumpy. And he wasn't that nice on the phone. And I just kept being kind and making myself smile while I talked to him on the phone, even though he couldn't see it. I wanted him to hear that I was going to be calm when he wasn't and kind when he wasn't. And I ended up buying 11 units from him because I kept my cool.
Wow.
And every time I got off the phone with him, like, sometimes my husband would be next to me, and he was like, was he yelling at you? He's like, I could hear him through the phone. He's like, how do you keep your cool? I'm like, I want his houses. Like, just keep saying. You just have to have like that emotional control, sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, you just never know who your partner's going to be. So that's a side topic. What do I think of Fundrise? I have not used Fundrise. I've clicked around on their website. They have different funds that they advertise. I have not used it. What's the average purchase price? So where I like to buy, which is like I said, I had to go outside of where I live to find a lower average price that made sense. Around here, you can still get what we call the 1% rule or better, where if a house is $100,000, it'll rent for more than $1,000. If a house is 120,000, you can rent it for 1,200. That's in landlording. Some people look for that as they look for different areas where they might want to consider purchasing. They look and see if houses in that area meet the 1% rule. And the 1% rule is, does 1% of the sales price equal monthly rent?
So are you also looking for cash flow or?
Oh yeah,
or just,
yeah. And we'll talk about that another session. I have all of these formulas for cash flow. Yeah, because I need to make at least, every landlord's different on as to what their criteria is. Some landlords that I've talked to in major cities where prices go up so much every year, they're like, I don't care if it cash flows. Do you know how much I'm making in appreciation? I'm like, well, around here, I can't count on that. Like, I live in the Midwest. We don't have crazy appreciation. We have to depend on cash flow. Plus, you never know when this appreciation train is going to stop. So if I've got a 30-year mortgage, I want to see $300 a month in cash flow. If it's a 15-year mortgage, I'm good with $200 a month if I know that I can increase the rents later. But I wouldn't go less than $200 a month in cash flow.
thank you.
What's the best way to protect investments, trusts, or LLCs? It depends. And there are some really good webinars that I can suggest, and I can suggest it on the Facebook page that I have attended that have told me which houses to put in trusts and which to put in LLCs. At what time does the class meet on Wednesdays? Well, it depends on what time you're in. If you go to that financialfreedomcourse.info, you will see the time zones. People said, thank you so much, great info. Well, thank you for being here.
I have a question. If I have a house out of state and it is being rented, I have a lot of equity from that home and I'm trying to pull money out. I just can't get a big outfit, my current mortgage bank to like pretty much cash out refi. So do you know any bank that would do that? Because I'd like to draw money out to buy more properties.
Like I said, I go to all the little banks, the banks you've probably never heard of, like Central Bank and First Harrison Bank. I go to these small little banks. That's my suggestion, is pick 20 banks, little small ones, and around your state, around your area, and ask them. They are much more likely to work with you than these large ones.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, thanks everyone for being here. Look forward to seeing you at the next class. I'm Heidi Four. I'm a MAPS coach, and I really appreciate you. Have a great day. Bye.